Awesome. Well, guys, I want to welcome Christo Bolger, literally living the fast life. He probably knows the town a little bit better than us. When I talked to Christo just earlier today, I didn't know he was from San Juan Islands. So I know our group is out of Washington State. He's had, I mean, I don't know if the felony, I think they came out of Washington State. So he might know a little bit more about Washington than even some of us. But Christo's personally, at this point, only been with FFL for 2.5 years. Like, to me, that's mind blowing. I've been doing this for like 4 years. It's not mind blowing because it's honestly, he's just a regular dude putting in the work. But within that short time frame, his agency's now doing somewhat of 450 to 550,000 a month. And at the same time has a high production of like personal pay. I was like, yo, Chris, so what's the most you've ever done? Super funny. He goes, honestly, bro, I've only done 55K. I was like, dude, you're a beast. But that's because he's actually been able to help multiple people on his team produce at that high level. And when you do that, it does feel that humbling where you're like, honestly, it's what I've been able to help other people do. And so, Christo, I just want to have you, and I think I have to unmute you real quick. There we go. Christo, I want to welcome you to our call, bro. I appreciate you taking the time. Thank you, bro. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, dude, I'm super grateful to be here. I actually want to start by saying I'm grateful to even be in a position in life where someone even wants me on their call. That's like a huge blessing because it wasn't always like that. So I think just to start off the call as a reminder for anybody that needs to hear this, like wherever you're at, I don't know very many of you guys. I know a couple of you guys. I've met you in person, whatever, but like just as a reminder, wherever you're at right now, dude, things can change very, very, very quickly. And over the matter of a couple of years, right? Like you can end up being in a position where all of a sudden, you go from being broke to people asking to be on their team calls. So, dude, it's a blessing to be on here. Thank you for asking me to jump on.
Yeah, well, dude, we're super thankful to have you, bro. So, and the way I want to format it, so everyone knows, we will have open Q&A for anything that you guys want to, bring up for Christo, any more details. But do hold it until the very end, so that way we can kind of, go from there. But what we're gonna do, Chris, I just want to, I don't know, you go by Chris ever?
Christo, just Christo.
Christo, bro. Let me not fuck it up early. But Christo, we're gonna go over your story, dude, because I know some of us have not actually heard it. And like we just mentioned, little glips. You did a complete 180, and I just want to hear it from yourself. And then from that, we'll go more into like deeper sales training for new agents and what you're helping your agents do. But you said you were in the San Juan Islands, and then you found FFL. How did that all kind of spring up? And then like your background story going into FFL and kind of where you're at today.
I'm gonna give you the short and sweet because it could be a very long long story of how I ended up getting to
Yeah.
FFL. But long story short, so I grew up on a super tiny island, San Juan Island, in Washington. There's probably like 5,000 people there. I lived there until I was 15 years old and then moved up to Bellingham, Washington, which probably a lot of you guys are familiar if you're from Washington. And actually my brother's on this call as well too, which is super awesome. So he's selling with us as well. So he can validate, everything that I'm telling you is factual. Holds me accountable. No, but yeah, I grew up on San Juan Island and just full transparency when I was 15, I got in some trouble and I was a troublemaker. My brother and I both were. And, I got my first 2 felonies when I was 15 years old, which I'm totally fine talking about because it's water under the bridge and it's part of my story. Like it's what makes me me today. And so I got in trouble, ended up moving to in quotations, the mainland, off the island and, tried to have a fresh start in Bellingham. And I did not have a fresh start at all, like right back into the same stuff, doing worse stuff. And drugs and alcohol are a huge part of my story. They're a huge part of my family's story. And I literally come from a family that is like a purebred drug addict and alcoholic. Like you think of like a purebred pit bull, like think of that with drug addicts and alcoholics. So there's a lot of chaos in my family, right? People are either sober, dead or like on their way to rehab, prison, or like somewhere in between. And that's a huge part of my story, and that's a huge part of my why. So to kind of cut to the chase, like I I'm trying to think about what to dive into because I don't want to spend too much time on like, my mess ups, but I ended up getting in a lot of trouble when I was like 19 years old. And I had gotten sober a couple different times, couldn't really figure it out. Like I'd find like a brief period of time where like 3 to 6 months I'd stop drinking, stop doing coke, um, get a hold on things. I'd start making really good money again. I'd get the car, I'd get the girl, like things were heading in the right direction, and I would get complacent, and I got some bread in my account, and then I, would decide I can drink like a normal human being, which, look at that as kind of like a metaphor. Like when I talk about drinking and
Yeah.
stuff like that, it applies to a lot of people in business, and I'll kind of tap into that later. But I really just couldn't figure it out. So when I was 19, got in trouble, 20, got charged with more felonies, and these are, big boy things that are life altering. And was running a business at the time, and juggled going through pre-trial for felonies, running a business, trying to maintain sobriety. And I was running a digital marketing company, and then I ended up doing time in sobriety through that. And to kind of just like fast track and give you an understanding of the rest of that, I got out, started smacking business, stayed sober. My life got really, really good. My company grew. The digital marketing business was smacking. I also owned a clothing company, and then a wholesale clothing company. So I was doing like custom screen printing and stuff like that for other companies, other businesses, like just more opportunity to create more revenue. And then,
Yeah.
what ended up happening, dude, it once again went back to the drugs and the alcohol. And,
Yeah.
a couple months ago, I just had 3 months sober. But like before that, I really could not figure it out. My entire life is like this up and down thing of like, hey, I'm sober and I'm doing good and I'm killing it in business and I'm making money. I might not feel good, but I'm doing all the things I need to do, and I'm showing up, and I have
Yeah.
integrity, and I'm consistent. And then it's like, hey, I start drinking, then I do drugs and X, Y, and Z. And for me, I'm not a casual drinker or a casual drug user. Like when I'm doing that, like
Yeah.
I'm fucked up. And
Yeah.
the thing that I've learned about that, as negative as it's been in my life, is like I also have a superpower, because that type of energy that I invested into drugs, alcohol, bad things, all of the above, it's been the biggest superpower in this business for me. And not to like air my brother's stuff out, but I've watched the same thing for him in this business as well. Like, bro, not to air your stuff out, but this is kind of like large life stuff. Like my brother's sober now too. He's coming up on 6 months sober. And like,
Awesome.
I get to sell my brother and I, it almost like makes me emotional, to be real with you. Like my brother and I used to do horrible things when we were younger. And honestly, my brother was the one that put me on in sales initially, and got me into a business mindset. And like now I get to sell insurance with my brother and like change people's lives and do really like it really does make me emotional, because if you knew the dynamics of my
Yeah.
family, like this opportunity and coming across it, I didn't even know what I was doing when I came across it. And now it's like my mom's licensed, my brother's licensed, all my friends are licensed, my current friends, people I used to do dirt with back in the day, like people are licensed, and we're like, not everybody knows what they're doing. Nobody's the best, but we're like moving this vehicle forward, and
Yeah.
everybody's pushing on the car, whether the engine's working, whether the AC's working, like everyone's pushing it forward. So it's been like this huge blessing for me
Yeah.
to come across this opportunity, because I hadn't come across a lot of things except for like maybe real estate, or maybe mortgage when people were killing it, or digital marketing, or a couple people I knew that had clothing companies that took off, where you could make the amount of money that we can in this business. And I say this jokingly,
Yeah.
and people were like selling drugs. Like, to be real with you, like I don't know a lot of businesses where people can make the income that you can in this business unless they're doing some like shady illegal stuff, right? So it's a huge blessing. And when I found this industry, it absolutely changed the trajectory of my life. So yeah, what else did you kind of want me to go through?
And just to unbox that a tiny bit, because obviously you had like a lot of things going on, and it made sense to keep moving in a direction where like FFL seemed like, I can probably get sober and move forward and have a good direction. Was there anyone in particular that you like sprung onto, or like, did you like that, there's a group of people in FFL that were like, dang, Christo, I want you to do better instead of go back to like any of that? Did you have anything like that? Was that like, so sometimes I tell people, I'm like, the community that we have at FFL, for me, it feels like I go and I meet Sean, and when he pushes me in a certain way, it's because he's genuinely always trying to help me. Did you have anything like that connected with like FFL that made you be like, bro, I need to not do any of the stuff I did before because this is like really real? Because obviously you've taken advantage of it like so much that you made a different decision now that you did before to not go back.
So I think for me, like because of my my criminal record, my licensing process took like 6 months, and it was almost not going to even be a thing that was going to happen. And I had messed up my life so much that, 3 years ago, I pushed the restart button on life and went to rehab, which I didn't want to do. It was a very humbling experience to kind of go from being at the highest point of my life to the lowest, and then getting out and pivoting careers, going from like, I know what I'm doing to, hey, I'm switching into life insurance out of my, 6-year career and getting rid of my business. But the funny thing is that in the in-between process of, getting my license and waiting for all of that to go through and not knowing, I went to a couple of different Family First Life events, and one was at Grady's office, and they were doing Grady's live Thursday call. And this is probably like today, 3 years ago, to be honest with you. Like the timeline, it was probably this month, 3 years ago. And then there was that much more time until I could actually get licensed and do
Yeah.
everything. I met Sean, I met Grady, I met all those people. Sean was actually running the call and kind of like picking on me a little bit. He was like, this guy, whatever. And
Yeah.
after I ended up having a conversation with Sean, and my first like real exposure to any FFL event was that. And, we talked about a couple of things, and he had talked about his sobriety on the call and made a joke about something drug related. And I was like, I like this because I feel like not judged. Like you can actually crack some funny, genuine jokes. And
Yeah.
he gave me his phone number, and he's like, hey dude, if you need help with contracting, whatever you got going on, like you seem like you're going to be a beast. And he was like, reach out to me. He's like, stay sober, do what you need to do, work a program, whatever that is. And that was my first exposure to, the CEO of the
Yeah,
company we all use for everything that we do. So
for
it
sure.
definitely, to answer your question, long story shorter, being around people that were really supportive of my sobriety, of me changing my life, that were not getting faded, that weren't doing the regular stuff, that weren't making money and going to the clubs. Like it was cool to work like 6-7 days a week, not like, hey, I made $5,000 this week, I'm going to go to the club and get bottle service. Like people are like, I'm waking up on Saturday and I'm going to grind. And I loved that energy because I needed that in my life.
For sure, dude. And I can totally see that, because like when I got going, I went to my first convention with my wife, and it was like I was down for honestly whatever to kind of just make money, like you were saying. But now we have 2 kids, and that's something that I noticed, like out of FFL, we're growing so much as a company that the leadership is growing like tremendously. Like people like yourself to like help other people move on. So I just wanted to touch on that for everyone, because I think that comes with like why everyone should go to the events. And now for events, for your team, are you guys getting everybody to these conventions, to like annual convention? What's your play on that? You won't, how do you talk to new agents? For new agents considering convention, and they're like, is this a good idea? Is it not? I want to start guiding the conversation and helping a new agent. Like what's coming up in the future? How should their mindset kind of be? And like taking this thing serious, because sometimes we suck. Like you don't know if like, I don't even have money and I'm not even making sales right now. Why would I go? How are you talking to your guys like that?
So just perspective wise, and I'm going to go back to where I was, because my life is wherever it's at right now, and that's great and that's cool. But when I started with this company, I was broke. Like, I had people say it all the time, and I don't know if everybody's telling the truth, but like, my brother can validate, when I restarted my life, like, I had like $200 to my name and was broke, did not know if I was about to get evicted. Like, things were not, my family was not talking to me. Things were very dark and gloomy. And the only reason I bring that up is because when I started this business, dude, I was so broke. I was so scared. I was so broken. Like a grown ass man, broken and just frightened to be in a new industry and frightened to be around new people, and and frightened to learn a new sales process, new products, all of that. Like, those are regular fears as a human being, right?
Right.
And my whole thing with FFL events, sobriety, whatever it is, like, give things a year. Like, honestly, give them a solid year and fully commit to the highest degree. Because if you're broke right now and your whole excuse is like, I don't have money, dude, you might as well go all the way broke in the process. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're, I don't know if that
Yeah.
makes sense to anybody. Like, if you're already broke, you don't have a huge risk. Like, for me to go back to broke right now would be life-changing money to go back. But when I started, it's like, dude, me being flat broke, $0 to my name was like $200. It's like, okay, like,
Yeah.
I can go figure it out. So I think with some of these things, like, you have to have a perspective shift of everyone's, when you start in this business, unless you're just like a baller that has 500 grand saved up in your savings account, you're operating out of financial insecurity. Well, like, if you want to become successful and like live the life beyond your wildest dreams and make all the money and have the girl, the car, all the stuff, like, you need to stop operating out of financial insecurity, and you need to make that shit happen. And the thing I've realized for me is I can't just make myself become that person. Like, iron sharpens iron. I've always heard that since I was younger. Or steel on steel, or something like in that realm, where I cannot make myself be the man that I want to be. I love it when people are like, I'm self-made. I'm like, dude, you're the opposite of self-made. There's like 100 or 1,000 people that have poured into you getting to where you're at, and you're fucked. Can I cuss?
Yeah,
No?
you got it, bro.
Okay.
All you, bro.
And you're fucked up for not crediting those people that have gotten you to that point. So the reason I bring that up is, I would get, like, my biggest suggestion is, I would get around people that are doing what you want to do. And maybe people that are even killing it. Maybe you don't want the life that they have, but like, my whole thing is, I'm focusing on the similarities, not the differences. I'm like, okay, Sean Mike has this going on. I want to figure out how to do this. I want to build a huge company. This is what I'm going to take this from Sean. Hey, Nina Hill has this. I love that they're doing this. Hayden has this. Bowen Sweeney has that. Like, all these people have this. How do I take that and put it together? Because you don't know what you don't know until you get exposed to it. So I think the biggest thing in this business is, fuck the fear, set that aside, get out of your comfort zone. Like, we're kind of getting paid in this industry. The more you get out of your comfort zone, the more money you're going to make. And the more you do that, I hope that that voice and what I just said replays in your head, because like, there's been times that people have reminded me, like, hey, the more uncomfortable you get, the more money you're going to make. And I've been in positions where, like, I was going to get it on a call like this, but it was like 2 years ago, and I'm like shaking, and I'm like, oh God, I hope I don't mess up. And through that time period, I've gotten way more comfortable with myself. I've become a grown ass man. And now, rather than being fearful of getting on these calls, dude, I'm like fired up. I'm like, who can I help today? Right. And so
That's
it's
dope.
changed, but I bring that back to the original thing of, get exposed to people that are doing what you want to do. Like, get exposed to men and women that can give you a different perspective, because maybe you sitting at home or sitting in an office or not getting exposed, like, maybe you need to meet that one person that's going to like click everything on for you and change your life forever. Because I've had multiple people in this business that have done that for me.
Right. No, dude, that's honestly what I jotted down. A super fire. When you guys go there, I felt like this is so valuable, because you always have that guy that comes back and they're like, I'm not like that person, or like they have this and that. but you say you focus on the similarities, because then you just put a bunch of similarities between, like a cocktail of different things that you saw in you out of the people that you felt, you want to be like. And now you're sharpening yourself because you're going to literally the best people in our agency, or like in the insurance space, because of how big FFL is. It's, to me, it's a no-brainer. So I can totally see that. And now, Christo, when you talk to a new agent and they're now getting started, are you doing final expense? Do you just say, hey, I know you told me earlier, well, how do you guys take that approach? Because there's IULs, mortgage protection, FX. I love what you were telling me about duplicating and making it really simple, because I think for me and most of us that are taking this business really serious, you want to duplicate your agency and make a big agency. I feel like that's key. How do you go about that and making sure it stays simple?
So can I ask a couple questions real quick to this for everybody that's on here? So,
of course.
And this is what I was going to do at the beginning. I just didn't want to like kind of take over the call or anything like that. But like, who on here actually like truthfully wants to build a team? Not like raising your hand because there's this guy on here that's like, who wants to build? Like who has an idea that they want to build a sales team? Okay. So who thinks that if they can make a ton of money and learn how to sell insurance more and more and more and make more money and learn that you can make more money from doing that, who probably would want to build a team? I would, if your hand's not raised like it should be, like there's a excuse, like with love, there's a fucking problem if your hand's not raised. And I mean that with all the love in the world. And I hope anything I'm about to say doesn't come off like I have everything figured out or know anything, because I don't. But I do want to harp on some things that I think are super important. So I always joke I have the IQ of a squirrel, right? And I do. I'm one of the dumbest people on my sales team, but I'm very consistent and habitual about what I do. Maybe it's because I've spent a lot of time in rehabs. Maybe it's because I've been conditioned to do stuff. Whatever it is, it's made me a habitual person. I work out at the same time. I go on a drive at the same time. I'm driving during the sunset. I'm doing stuff at the same time, always and consistently. And with everything that I do, I'm not trying to do it for me. I'm trying to do it for the duplication's sake, because I know if I want to build something of value, of worth, that has equity, that I can sell later on, that is going to change multiple people's lives, guess what? It's not going to be Christo's way. If it was my way, I wouldn't be on this call right now. I'd just be running live transfers, laying in bed, playing Xbox, and just like writing e-apps. You know what I'm saying? Like it would be done a different way because I have some finesse. So when I'm talking about building a business and getting new agents set up, my whole thing is I love the lowest barrier of entry, which I would say final expense. And I can sell mortgage protection. I can sell IULs. I know how to sell fixed index annuities. I'm not the master at all of them. I don't think I'm the master at anything, but I'm really passionate about what I do when I do it. So for me, I like selling final expense. Like this month, I'll write 40K of final expense business. And it's funny because I have a lot of people that throw shade or make fun of me. They're like, that guy just writes final expense. And I'm like, who deposited more money this month? Like, are you working to be like, I sell IULs and I'm an IUL specialist? Or are you working for money? Like, are we all here for money initially? Like, no one came here for a social club. I was not like, I want to join Family First Life and make friends. I was like, I am fucking broke and I need to make money right now, like right now. And so for me, I try to operate out of that. Like, I'm not so focused on quality of conversation. I'm not so focused on really anything related to emotionally how I feel. I'm like, I'm working for money. I need to deposit income. If we were operating out of the version of like, I want a job that creates the most impact, dude, quit Family First Life right now and go like help homeless people for free. You know what I mean? Like go like if you're talking about doing that, we are here to make money. You did not wake up at 4 years old and you're like, I want to be a life insurance agent. No, like we're all here to get paid. So I just want to remind you guys that, like, yes, protect families and do all this stuff, but like the people that say that too much, like they're bullshitting themselves. We are here to get paid. We are here to change our lives. You are here to change the dynamic of your family if you see it the right way. So I know that's kind of intense asking me about new agents, but it's super important for you to
Yeah.
understand, like, you have a license to print money, whether you want to sell final expense, mortgage protection, IULs, whatever it is. But like, if I go back to being a new agent, you need to be able to crank over 10K a month in final expense consistently before you pivot into anything else. Because if you can't do the lowest barrier of entry and do that consistently, how can you scale into the next thing? Like, how are you going to write an IUL that is huge, that takes 30 to 60 days to issue because of underwriting requirements, and you're broke as fuck waiting to get paid, right? Like, the biggest IUL I wrote was $4,000 a month. I had a huge target premium as well because they wanted a ton of death benefit. I was sitting there waiting to get paid like 30 grand, and it was funded annually. But guess what? It took 4.5 months. So I love index universal life, love fixed index annuities, love mortgage protection. But like, in terms of, if you really want to crank up the heat and use some elbow grease and some sweat equity and just change your life income wise, I would highly recommend people starting with final expense and setting a goal and being really accountable to how hard they hit the phones, how much they market themselves in their personal life, right? Like, if you're not on the phones, dude, go market yourself to people you know. This is recorded, so I'm gonna say, based on your state guidelines, figure out how much you can incentivize or what you can give people gift card wise for sending you business. But for me, I was like, I wanted 50 salespeople out there. I'm like, dude, if you send me business, I'm going to kick you a referral fee. I'm actually about to pay one out tomorrow and then one the following week because I still do that stuff. Right. So like, you have to be hungry. Like, I have $1,000 in my checking account right now, and my bills at the beginning of the month are $20,000. How does that make sense? Right? Everything's transferred out. I've put myself into a spot of financial insecurity because I've made some bread and my bills are paid, where I have to make all that money and then some. So like, I'm operating out of the version of me to a degree of I'm broke, right? And I'm still doing that a couple years in, where I watch a lot of people come in and they're operating out of financial insecurity. They're concerned. They want to be successful, but rather than doing stuff, they freeze. So I'm all about, when people start, I want to see how much you can dial the phone. I want to see how people handle rejections. I want to see how people handle adversity. I want to see how positive people are, because dude, if you're meant to make it in this business, like, you're showing up with an attitude that is solutions based, right? Like, I look at Diego and it's like, he's talking about stuff with Sean and even promoting stuff where he's like the poster child for someone that is coachable and has good energy and will show up and help you. Right. So I think if you have that energy, you're bound to be successful. But the biggest thing for people is, I'm like, write down your schedule. I'm not going to be your boss. Like, I'm not going to chase you down, but I don't work with people that I have to tell that they need to work. Like, at that point, you're like moved into a different category of anything that was going to be in business if I have to remind you to work. So I think starting consistent with dial sessions. If you're broke, dude, figure out lead flow or go get a flyer, go door knock, whatever it is, so you can at least get enough lead flow to be having solid dial sessions. Like, operate out of fight or flight. I'm always reminding myself, like, dude, there are people in Africa that if they could speak English and have an insurance license, they would be working 14 hours a day doing anything and everything to sell a policy for like $9 a month. You know what I'm saying? Like $9 a month. And so I think it's just really good perspective wise when you're new, right? You guys are at wherever you're at and you have whatever is going on in your life. We're all different, but like, operate out of the best version of yourself and commit and make a commitment with your manager of, I'm going to work this much. This is what's going to happen. If I do hit my goals, I'm still going to keep working. If I don't hit my goals, this is what I'm going to do. And I think for new agents, dude, that's the biggest thing is for me is like seeing how they operate under pressure. depending on where they're at financially and whether they follow through on, the things that we set for them to hit.
Right. And now I want to ask you a little bit deeper on that to help a new agent like get going, as you have that conversation, like for instance, with your brother, because sometimes we recruit people that are like your best friends. So it's a little bit like, all right, bro, you're going to work today, or like, you don't know, how do you set the table with someone like as close as your brother, as you start to show him what's like possible? Like, how are you having those conversations? Maybe not just with your brother, but I'm just saying like people that are close to you. So now you have to go like, awesome, dude, I'm not going to help you, even though now you're saying that like you're on my team and I'm going to help you. But like, and you are helping them because you're now getting them to be independent. How are you doing that in a specific way?
Um, in the most loving way. I don't talk to half of the people on my team like a lot. And I don't mean that because I like think I'm better than anybody or whatever, but like, dude, I'm doing shit all day. Like if I'm not dealing with something business wise, it's personal, or I'm helping somebody or whatever. Like I had a very small life a couple years ago, and my life has gotten really big personally and professionally. And I'm here to make money and change people's lives. And so I think when you have people coming in the business that are close to you, the conversation I had with my brother was, I'm like, one, my brother's super smart. He's talented. Like I know all these things, but I'm like, hey, what you do reflects on me. And coming into this business, like I'm not messing around. And so like we need to set the standard, and I need help doing that. So if you're going to become a part of my business, like you need to hold the same level of, work ethic and schedule, because people want to be a part of something, right? Like people just want to be a part of something, and that's great. And I love that. But I'm a part of a men's group. I'm a part of another group. I'm a part of an entrepreneurs group. But like, I'm not here at work to just like sit here and be on Zoom. Right. And so I kind of have that conversation with people out the gate. Like, truthfully, what are your goals? Like, I want to understand it. And I think that can be a tricky thing with people, because people I don't know, I'm like, hey, this doesn't work for me. And when you do know people, there's kind of like a tricky barrier with that. But I think you have to set intentions properly with people that are coming on, and just literally set expectations. Hey, like if you're not,
Right.
I'm going to have to be harder on you since we're closer than other people. And I'm going to do that with love.
That's good. That was really fire though, for real. I mean, just because I feel like that's something that, at least for me personally, Christo, as we build the business, you know what I mean? Getting that. And I think, as you grow as a person, it becomes easier to then have that respect kind of lifted for yourself. Now, I wanted to ask you for like, on that expectation on your agents, you guys have like a metric that you try to say, hey, full-time agents are hitting this, part-time agents are hitting this, to try to guide them to know exactly kind of what to do? I love actually more so the fight or flight, because that basically means like, bro, why are you not doing 12 hours if you're not like, if you say you're broke, you should be dialing the entire time. But is there like a metric you guys try to follow, or is that just how you guys carry the agency, and that's why the culture is so good? Because I see you guys like in person all the time, and I'll ask you that next, is like how valuable in person is. But for that, what would you
So
say?
with metrics, we have the circle of life. It went from it previously, like 2 years ago, when I was fresher, it was $1,000 a day and 5 presentations a day. We were running nothing but like 6-month-old leads. Right now, marketing has changed, lead options have changed, so we kind of had to switch some things up. But like, if someone's new and they're ending the day and they don't have, 500-600 dials, so it's either 600 dials, 5 presentations, or a sale. Like, that's what we would call the circle of life. You have to have lead flow in that as well. And you guys might use this as well, but we've had to change it depending on what leads we're running or what's going on. But if you're ending the day and you don't have 600 dials, you don't have 5 presentations, or you don't have a sale, my question is like, oh, are you working? Because I could sit there and just click dial really quick and get 600 dials if you're actually working. Like, we get paid to dial the phone. We get paid to talk to people. Like, there's a lot of people scrolling on social media and a lot of stuff going on. So that's a good metric to try and hit is, if you make a
Yeah.
sale and you want to be done for the day and you've made 10 dials and you just got a lucky pickup at the beginning, dude, you could call it. I'm not the guy that's going to call it because I want to be able to genuinely like buy my mother a house. Like I have very big goals and aspirations that people talk about but don't do. Like I want to be the guy in my family that does that. So I think combination of circle of life and also really tapping into your why, and your why can change. But like I can
Yeah.
guarantee you the why I've tapped into is gonna, I don't know how else to say it, it's gonna shit on other people's why. So like when times get
Yeah.
tough, if my whole team quit right now, dude, I'm bummed. Like I love so many people on my team. Like, damn, my brother left, some of my best friends go. I'm gonna hire another 50, 60 people over the next couple months, and I'm gonna build it back. Right. So when you tap into your why and you know what's going on, you could get hit with a ton of bricks and you're like right back up. And it's like, okay, I'm here. So, but you bring that back down to the day to day. When your why is big, you're not going to cut yourself slack from making 600 dials. Dude, you finished 600 dials, you got 2 presentations, no sale, whatever. If you want to call it, you can. But like you got to be hitting some of those metrics. And that's the baby watered down version because people were really complaining about $1,000 a day.
That's freaking awesome, dude. And now I want to talk about in person. How valuable do you find like getting people in person? You guys all like, I feel like they come to like dial with you. Our office is obviously we have an office, so we're always trying to bring people in person. I even know your brother moved from Washington to Arizona to get that in person. If you're close to an office to some degree or Zoom, like I mean, like I'm here, I'm in Kentucky because I'm in person with an agent because the value is like that valuable. But for someone that's like from a distance, how important do you feel like it is for them to be around? Because like the convention is like, obviously it's a different thing than actually going and dialing together. Because you could do it on your own. Like technically you could just go dial at home. But why are you getting those guys to come through? Is that helping you a lot? Or is that like, what's behind that?
So that's what changed the game for me was getting around people. I'm kind of like a lone wolf with other stuff. Like if it was just me that I'm just only going to sell insurance, I was kind of like, I want to be alone. I don't want to be around people. I had low self-confidence, low self-esteem, shitty bank account. I just didn't want to be around people that were like critiquing me because I had worked in sales before. Right. Like I know enough in sales where I can sell a product. I knew nothing and I sold my first policy. Like I can make it happen. But I reached a point where I kind of like bottomed out. And for me, I remember I called Josh Williams and I'm like, dude, I'm at a point where I need to double down in this business and like get around people. And like, I want the critique. I want to make the money. I want to be making 20, 30, 40K a month. Like I'm seeing people do it and I got frustrated. I was so mad at myself. I'm like, dude, I've been the best. Not, let me retract that. Not the best. I've been one of the top performers in any company or thing that I've done where I was over here and I'm sitting alone at my house, depressed, broke. And I'm like, dude, why can't I figure this out? And then it dawned upon me, I'm like, I'm not using the resources that I have. And then come to find out, dude, you pick up mindset, skill set, habits, word tracks, all these things. You get around some people, you make some friends. You don't feel as lone wolf anymore. You get around people that are building a business. You watch people building a team and you're like, oh, I need to do that now. Or you get around people that are making 20, 30, 40, 50, 6 figures a month. And you're like, oh, I can do that. Like most of my friends make well over 6 figures a month. And all of a sudden I've like finessed myself into making 6 figures a month. And it wasn't just because I sat in a room alone and I'm like, we got this figured out. We're a 6 figure a month income earner. Like that is not me, So I think getting in front of
Yeah.
people and setting your anxiety aside and just go spending the time getting critique, getting feedback, like have some
Yeah.
camaraderie in your life. It changes the game.
Yeah. Well, now, Christo, I'm going to loop it back. We got like, 12 minutes. And honestly, guys, if you do have a couple questions that came up, we're getting to that time. But I want to bring it back to, you've had lows. And I just want to talk about now your highs, bro, because you've been doing things from a distance that I just never have asked you. And I think it'd be only cooler to ask you like over this call. Like, what is the highs now, dude? Things that you probably couldn't imagine. You're literally living the life that other people just see it on Instagram. You've told us about your lows. How I feel like the biggest highs is probably helping your mom, helping your brother, you know, at, elaborate more on how that, like, your lifestyle these days, dude. It's literally insane. Like, I think some people actually don't know. Honestly, this is why I'm asking it, because I don't think they know that it's like real, because it's like Instagram kind of looks fake, like it's all like not real. And I think I love how humble you are about it, that I wanted to ask you, you know, how crazy that's been for you, because you don't seem like a guy that was like, I mean, you knew it was going to happen, but you know, it's one of those things you almost just don't believe it because you're like where you're at, you know. But how's that been for you?
Um,
What kind of car do you have, bro? That's what I'm like. I don't even know how big your apartment is. I'm like, you
dude,
know,
you have to say what type of car I have. I don't want to be flexible. So I'll put it this way,
what
and
type?
I
What
mean
type
this.
of What type of Lambo is it?
It's a Urus, so it's the SUV. But I want to communicate this like genuinely in the most like humble way possible, because I don't necessarily want to be the guy that's like talking about this, but I also do want to provide like some transparency and truth to this business, because I came in the business super broke. I was in a position where I was like, I'm gonna give it 6 months before I shoot myself in the head. Like that's very intense. If you guys knew the dynamics of my life, you probably would not blame me for what was going on. Right. Like I was up between a rock and a hard place. And, fast forward 2.5 years in this business of working 6 days every single week in the same schedule, whether I felt good, whether I had COVID, whether my friend died, regardless of what I had going on. Right. I've worked through a lot of really emotional shit and a lot of really, really hard times. I've gotten multiple phone calls before running team meetings that close people in my life have died. And I'm like, dude, I got to thug it out, because I took the cop out all the other years of my life. So I made it a point, after copping out time and time again and just getting fucked up and wasting my life and being unreliable and all these things, where I'm like, I'm just going to prove to myself that I can show up consistently and do all this stuff. And so with doing that, I'm a multiple felon, right? It's really hard to rent places or do a lot of stuff or get a passport, stuff like that. And so some of the things that have changed for me personally, and these are kind of like the cash and prizes, but like, I went from only being able to live in piece of shit places that accept felons to moving into the nicest place I've ever lived in my life. And I started making more money through that process. And then I had the opportunity to get a penthouse. I've never had any dynamics like penthouse. What? Like for me, like that's not like, dude, I grew up on a small island without stoplights and then have been a drug addict my whole life. So that was very out of the norm and just not the usual. I've been exposed to nice stuff, right? I've never had the opportunity of it being mine. And so perspective wise, like, I live in a place where it's wall to wall windows. And it's like, I wake up with the sunrise. I get to pray, I get to meditate. And then I get to do calls like this and be on the phones and watch the sunset. Right. Like my house is bright. I don't live in a dark felon dungeon that like has ants and bugs infested in it, where the maintenance won't come through and my AC's out. And you know what I mean? Like I don't have those dynamics anymore. Like my bills are paid. I have a roof over my house. I got active driver's license, active car, like all those things that used to be an issue are no longer that. And, through saving the first, I would say, I don't know, year and a half, like I didn't really change any of the dynamics of my life. I still lived in the same piece of shit apartment. I blew it up with agents, not literally, but like we just filled up my apartment with agents. There was people sitting on floors. There was like, it was not pretty at all. It was like we called it the sales dungeon. And through doing that and keeping the same bills and the same dynamics while everyone else was spending money, everyone else was trying to look cool, everyone was doing this, I was just the guy working the same schedule, going to AA meetings, showing up, stacking cash, trying to get in a good position. And then, you know, all of a sudden within a year and a half, dude, I saved 300 grand. Which is, I don't I don't know a lot of companies that you can do that, or businesses. Like, making 300 grand would be one thing, but all the medical bills and all the other stuff that I had, saving 300 grand in like a year and a half, that to me was absolutely insane. And so, you know, with doing that, I've come across new dynamics where it's like, hey, I got to buy a car that's a tax write-offable thing, and happen to be an SUV Lamborghini and stuff like that, where, you know, those things are really cool. And it's been a perspective shift of like, I am now officially a man of worth, and I'm accountable and reliable, and I deserve these things. But overall, like, you know what I'll tell you, the best part is like being on this meeting and looking at my brother and knowing we're both sober, and like knowing that my mom knows we're both sober, and my mom is involved in my business, and my mom makes a couple $1,000s a month from my business, which is going to continue to grow and grow and grow and grow. Like the Lambo, the penthouse, I heard that stuff in music I listened to, and I went out and got it because my ego needed it. And I truly feel I deserve that to a degree, right? Now that I've gotten that, that's cool. The most impactful stuff is like building a fucking legacy, like actually getting to a point where I can retire my mom through life insurance, right? Like those are the things where it's like, dude, no matter where you come from, what dynamics you have, like apparently for me, criminal record, like it doesn't really matter. Like if you've been to college for 8 years or you got a GED, like this is a level playing field. You could have your doctorates, but some motherfucker like me is going to eat you for lunch because I'm more desperate, and I have the gift of desperation of just showing up and doing the work, right? Like I get punched in the face, I'll still be smiling. And so, like if I can leave you with anything from that, we all want the cash and prizes, and we all want the money, and we all want to look cool, and we all want to have a cool Instagram. But in reality, you know what we're all after? We're after freedom. Like money equals freedom. If my mom gets cancer right now, dude, I can do what's necessary to make that happen. Is she going to get cancer? No, I don't think so. But like, I want to be in a position where I can be free. But on the interim, I got to be exactly where I'm at, which is, dude, I'm not Elon Musk. I'm not Sean Mike. I don't have 100 mil in the bank, right? Like, I got to do what I need to do to get to where I want to be. And yeah, cool places are awesome. Upgrading your life is epic, but I'm still the guy that's down to roll my sleeves up and get dirty every day of the week.
Yeah. Dude, and honestly, that's why I wanted to ask you, because I know some guys that I've like told them about, you know, Bowen, you know, yourself, you guys are getting an amazing freaking life. I wanted to ask that because of how real and honest you are, because like that's what I love about like yourself and like Bowen. So like genuine, and you have goals. That's why you're getting the things that you're getting, you know. And so I just appreciate, you know, your full, like, dude, that was valuable. I was like, man, I wonder if that question is going to come off. But dude, you took it exactly like what I wanted to happen, which is like the genuineness of why you have everything that you have. Now, if there's any questions, guys, we're going to wrap it up. But Christo, I wanted you to give us like 1 or 2 points that you feel like we could go apply as our agency, or things that you feel like you keep in your mind that you're like, dude, this is just, everybody should be operating by this. And if you are, just like, what are some action steps for us? And we'll close that, unless right now, guys, if you have any last questions for Christo, feel free to put it in the chat or ask. But Christo, if you have any points to like close us out, I'm super thankful for you being on, and I'll make sure we close it out. But I just wanted you to help close us out.
Yeah, no, for sure. And dude, if there's questions or anything, I'm totally fine running over. This is probably like the best part of my day, to be real with you. So that's totally fine. But before I close it out on that, do you guys have any questions at all? Like any value I can provide, hit me with whatever you got. Devin, what's up, dude?
We got one in the chat too, but Devin, you got one? Oh, let me unmute him. There we go. I got him.
All right, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hey, I resonated with you a lot, and a lot of the stuff that you're talking about. I grew up in some similar situations. I'm very curious when you're talking about recruiting, because that's a really big thing for me, and I have a very smart mind for things too. What's some of your tips to get those numbers up to 50, 60 a month, even 20? Like, what are some? I use Instagram, I use LinkedIn, different things like that. Do you have any solid tips? I know
The
there's no secret sauce, but I'm sure you have something.
So just recruiting in general, like
Just in
say over a year span.
just in general, yeah, over a year, how you get consistent 10, 20, 30, 40 people a month.
This is what I kind of dropped the ball on earlier on of explaining. And I apologize because I'm so over caffeinated, but we're making it happen. So the thing that I did, and I watched Wes Watson do this when he got out of prison. Whatever you guys think about Wes Watson, if you don't know who he is, look him up, whatever. Remove the tattoos, the way he communicates, any of his stuff. That dude, hands down, is one of the best marketers on the face of the earth. He was in prison 5 years ago. He is now making $2.8 million a month. He's a very controversial person. Like, he cusses a lot, has a lot of things to say, has a very, like, whatever. I'm not focused on any of that. I looked at this guy's marketing and his consistency of his habits, what he did. Like, there's not a single day I've followed him for 5 years, like since he got out of prison. There's not a single day he did not wake up and post his routine and do his stuff and what's going on and talk about what he has going on and promote himself. And so I'm not going to say I can't. I didn't do that to Wes Watson level, but I saw what he did. And I'm like, if I can show people and be like, hey, I just got out of rehab. My life sucks, but I'm getting my life insurance license. Watch what I do over the next 6 months. If you want to get involved in 6 months, let me know. If you want to get involved in a year, let me know. And initially, people were probably like, this guy sounds like a scam artist. Why is he trying to hire people? All this stuff. But guess what? 6 months in, people were like, dude, I'm ready to quit my job. I see what you're doing. You got a new car. You're glowing. Like, I can hear the way and you communicate, like you're changing your life. Right. Then another 6 months later, people are like, bro, what is going on? Like, you're still sober. You got a whole bunch of people on your team. This is what's going on. A year and a half in, that is where things took off. And that is really where in people's minds from posting on my Instagram story consistently and building up my following, right? Getting better and better content. There wasn't much to follow initially, but I got better and better content. The more money I got, the more stuff I had going on, the more people I was training, the more impact I was making. And that, I just looked at it like, dude, I'm writing a movie right now, and it's going to be real, it's going to be transparent, and it's going to be actual life. I showed the good, the bad, the ugly, the super good, the deposits, how we get paid. And so that's one of my favorite parts about the business, because if you're actually showing up, you're actually working, and you're doing what you need to be doing, and you showcase that, and you're not a dick about it, you're not corny about it, and you're not like just too much. Like, this is my life. 80% of it is my life. 20% is business. 80-20 rule. People will actually want to follow you. And the doper you make your life get, because you make more money and work harder, the more people are going to want to be around you. So I could go in, I could do a full separate call about that. And I need people on my team to do the same thing. But like, 80-20 rule, market yourself online. Don't be afraid to promote a post, but like, make sure it's something you would watch and you would want to get involved in. So you just got to create whatever that is. Because now, if I saw my Instagram and I was different, I'd be like, dude, this guy looks like he makes decent money. Sounds like he's been through some stuff and he's trying to change some people's lives. But when I first started, there wasn't a lot going on there. So I had to do the work and create it.
Wonderful. Thank you for that.
Yeah, for sure, bro.
We got one in the chat here. It says, what was your schedule like the year that you put away 300K in the bank?
Absolutely psychotic, dude. Like, well, definitely overcompensating for loss of time. So I think when I really got dialed in is when I started waking up at 5 a.m. And because I'm huge on fitness. That's a huge part of my life, huge part of my sobriety, my business, everything, the way I feel. Like, having a bad day, dude, I'm not drinking, I'm going to go work out and I'm going to feel better and whatever. But when I changed my workouts from the middle of the day into the morning and had to start waking up at 5, and then impaired with my sobriety and you know, spirituality, like working out, showering, praying, meditating, writing a gratitude list. Once I cared about my life enough to like really start doing that, I'm like, okay, I've already been up for 3 hours and now I'm getting on the phone. Like I'm getting on the phone sharp. I'm dialed. I'm connected with God or higher, but whatever you believe in, right? Where I'm like operating out of a higher frequency of myself. So when I come across the person that wants that, or the agent or the client, or someone says, fuck you, I'm like, awesome, perfect. What I'm going to have you do is just grab a pen and paper real quick. Let me know when you have that ready. I'm going to get you removed off the list. Okay. And for some reason, they're just grabbing a pen and paper, right? And so I think that is the biggest thing was waking up early for me. And I would go 8 to 12, dial, training, selling. And then I'd take a break, go on a drive. Like I'm a big drive guy, just kind of like put some miles, listen to some music, you know, listen to some Moneybag Yo, come back. And then I'll eat. I would eat in front of the computer. I did that today. I literally have meal prep right next to me. And I would dial. Like I didn't have a ton of time. So for me, I was very intentional. Hey, if I can go on a drive for 15 minutes, come back, eat, that just saved me another 30 minutes. I'm on the phones, and then go from, 12:30 to 5. And if I absolutely killed it, I'm calling it. If not, dude, I'm going to take a break for a second, get my mind right so I'm not bogged down, maybe go on another drive, eat some more food. But I was just jumping back on the phones. Like I had no reason to stop. I had nothing going on in my life. Like I had some responsibilities and stuff, but like there was no reason to not keep going.
Yeah. Fight or flight. Another one in here is, did you start recruiting as soon as you got licensed?
I started marketing myself as I got licensed. So I was the guy that was going to get in financial services 6 months prior and couldn't get into it. And so, you know, I was just like, man, I don't even know where this is going. I sold my book of business thinking I was going to be starting in life insurance like 2 weeks later. And, you know, ended up being 6 months later. So I went from having some money to like broke. And I just marketed myself to people. I'm like, hey, dude, I'm getting out of digital marketing. I'm getting into life insurance. I'm probably going to build a team. Depending on how I do, I'll circle back with you. I'll let you know how I'm doing, but basically keep your options open if I end up killing it. And so I was just letting people know, planting seeds. And yeah, exactly. Setting the table early, just kind of subtle marketing of like, hey, this is what I got going on. And then when things started working out and I started getting some paychecks, I would screenshot them and shoot them to my buddies who were in solar or whatever, just keeping up with them. I'm like, dude, I got my first check. And they're like, sweet. And then I'm like, dude, check this out. This is crazy. And then they're keeping in touch with me more. And all of a sudden it's like, I have people that are like, hey, I'm interested in what you're doing. So attraction rather than promotion is kind of how I did that initially, but I did plant the seed. And then I was documenting what I was doing. And I was intentionally saying, once I got paid like $5,000, I'm like, hey, I'm going to build a team. I don't know everything, but I know I'm going to do that. And then once I started doing that, a month or so after is when I had like my first people actually start to come on. So I think if you're in a spot, if you want to build a team, dude, it's going to make you sell more because you're afraid of bringing people on and being embarrassed. Like, oh yeah, I'm on Christo's team. He writes $2,000 a month. No, like I want to be on the Christo's team that writes $40,000 a month and it got shit going on. So like it held me to a higher standard. Like responsibility is what keeps you accountable. And if you don't have responsibility and you're just responsible for yourself, it's like, maybe you do 1/3 of the effort. So I think it's important to put yourself out there, and you don't know that until you got people that are looking at you for what the next thing is to do. Like, do you stop when you write 3K in a day or do you keep going? So.
Definitely. No, that was fire. And then on a follow-up, if you're reading it there, you can take it, but you can read it.
Yeah. And how did you train or help people get licensed? So, with training people, most of the stuff I do is hands-on. And I'll send people like I'll be real. I could be way better with getting people trained up, but in this business, it's almost like a test. Like there's certain stuff you have to be able to figure out or you're not going to make it. Right. Like we're essentially building a book of business and our compensation is way higher than industry norm here. So like if you're not willing to jump on YouTube or you're not interested in stuff enough to like grab some additional information and do some light reading, like for me with people, it's probably not going to work out. But we have our original boot camp. We're still using the same one from like a year and a half ago. It's outdated, but it goes over the basic stuff that I need people to know about dialing, the script, the objections, the rebuttals. And like with getting people trained, I'm rather than doing some conceptual, like we're going to train for a week. I'm like, dude, get on the phones and let me see how you sound. Right. Like, let's actually like, let's hear how you are under pressure. Let's get some really old leads and see how you handled that. But I think one thing that is huge is people that have trained on objections and rebuttals. So like doing role play, I think that's huge. So you've built the train track in your mind of you hear this and you say that, hear this, say that, hear this, say that. And I think that's really big because the more fluent people get with that, you can tell. I've been put on the spot in front of hundreds of people with objections and rebuttals and running random presentations on calls and with 250, 300 people I didn't even know I was going to run. But guess what? I was so grateful that I sat in a room and went back and forth with someone with objections and rebuttals because it prepared me for those situations and with clients. But yeah, with getting licensed, let's see here. Once we get you licensed and contracted. Oh, okay. So he's coming on. Yeah, dude, they'll get you set up once you're all licensed. They'll get you dialed in.
Yes, sir. Yo, Christo, you've been freaking awesome, bro. If you have the last 2 points for us, I mean, you can keep taking the floor and I could hear you for ages, bro. I'm probably going to call you after this anyways. But if you have something you were thinking of?
Yeah. So if I could leave you guys with anything, there's 28 people on this call. And I think the best thing that you could do right now, whether you're 20, whether you're 60, whether you're 30, regardless of what you got going on in your life, like I think if you can take an hour in the next week, I would probably do it tonight or tomorrow. Otherwise, you're not going to do it. That's how it is. But I would kind of take an inventory of like where your life is at, where your bank account's at, and like truthfully where you are as a man and woman. And then with that, write down what you actually want, right? So you got like where you're at on one side, you got where you truthfully want to be in the next like 365 days on the other side. And then below that, write down all the things that you're actually willing to sacrifice to make that happen. And be really honest with yourself. Like take an honest inventory of what that looks like for you. Because a lot of us are feeding ourselves some bullshit. Like a lot of us make ourselves feel like we work harder than we do. It makes life, it's like bogged down. Like in reality, if you're operating out of the best version of yourself, super accountable, super consistent, dude, you could work 4 hours a day and be done. But like people don't work to that level of consistency where I think having an honest look of where you're at, where you want to be and having that on pen and paper, there's something like ingrained in the human soul of like getting thoughts and writing them down, not in a digital device, an iPhone, having them on paper where you can't like click backspace and it just all deletes, like having it on paper where you cannot change it. And then I would set up a game plan with your manager, whoever you're working, and make adjustments to your schedule. And really like with those 3 things we just talked about, like I would grab another sheet of paper and write down your why and like really figure out what your why is. Like, what do you want? Dude, do you want a Lambo? Is that why you're working your ass off? Great. Go do it. You want to take care of mom? That's a more important thing. That's a way more that's going to push you through. For me, I want to be like the beacon of hope in my family full of drug addicts and alcoholics that like you can get sober you can change your life around. You can go from being the most unreliable person in your family and personal network to being the most reliable, financially stable person that is in my friends, and maybe not family, but most of the people that I know. And so if I could leave you with anything, like, have a serious conversation of where you want to be so that you can leverage this opportunity that's in front of us, for what you want to use it for. Because you guys, we have a license to print money. The products are great. People need them. That's all fine and dandy, but like, you have a license to print money. If you're practice, you can focus on mindset, skill sets, habits. That's the last thing I would write down: mindset, skill set, habits. That is what's going to get you successful.
Christo, bro, I want to thank you for the whole hour, bro. You don't get paid at all a cent for coming on with us. And honestly, it's just who you are, dude. So I knew that once we connected, we just had to line it up at one point. It's been insanely valuable for me, of course. And it's going to be in there. But guys, if you want to put a CB to thank Christo on the chat, maybe give him a post on Instagram. I mean, literally, I say Instagram works. Like, let's be each other's friend, like get each other's back. That to me is like the least literally you could do. But even then, you don't have to do that. Christo's growing either way. Christo, I want to say thank you, bro. I appreciate you for our time, or for your time. And anything I can do for you, let me know, dude. You got my number.
Dude, I'm super grateful for you guys. The last thing I'll say, just to give kind of Diego a shout out, is you guys, whatever he's doing, I would duplicate it. He knows how to do it. He's an awesome guy. And like, leave it all on the field. And for the next 365 days, like, do everything that he tells you to do, just to prove him maybe it doesn't work. And I promise you, if you do what he tells you to do, like, it's going to work. So, thank you for having me on the call. I appreciate you guys. I hope you got something valuable out of that. It started off a little rocky, but it took me a second to kind of find what I needed to communicate. And, yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful night. Thanks for having me on.